Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Broadcasting 2 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Nathan's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vin Finelli. There's a link to your instructors on the website, USAPREPARES.com. Rich Scheben's with us. Welcome, Rich.
Thank you, Vincent Finelli. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm well. You know, I was thinking about those big box stores. So I needed to get a few items over the last few weeks, and I stopped into the blue one, and I stopped into the orange one. And I really used to like the blue one when I lived on the East Coast. You know, I'd go into the big blue box store. I'm talking home improvements and building materials and so forth. And they had this feature that if you were a contractor, you could get this little card. It was like a credit card, but it wasn't. It was just an identification card that said that you were part of this club, if you will, this elite group of contractors, and you could get 5% off anything that you bought. It was a reward for being a big spender, you know, compared to the typical customers that they have. Have you heard of such a thing, Rich?
I've heard of it.
Okay, well, I used to proudly carry my Lowe's, now you know the big blue store I'm talking about, contractor's card, and when I would go through the checkout, I would pull out my card and at first, and then it would hit some kind of a key, and it would deduct 5% off everything I bought. And at the time, I was buying kitchen cabinets, one per month. I don't mean one cabinet, I'm talking about one kitchen per month. And that's because I was a real estate investor, and I was rehabilitating buildings. And I would rehab one kitchen per month. So, I mean, who buys 12 sets of kitchen cabinets a year, right? It's not all that common, but I was, because that's how many kitchens I was upgrading. Well, it was really kind of nice. So, and the kitchen cabinet people said, I tell you what, we have a sale, 50% off, you know, once in a while, but because you're buying them once a month, we'll give you 50% off all the time. So you just come on in, and we'll give you 50% off, just like it's on sale. But for, you know, it's not on sale, but for you it is, because you buy so many kitchen cabinets. So that's great. So Lowe's treated me like a contractor that I was. I was also a full-time employee at a company, but at nights and weekends I was a real estate investor. Well, I moved to Missouri, and the card still worked. It was great. I didn't have the kitchen cabinet feature, but I didn't need it. It was okay, because I wasn't rehabbing houses and apartments. And all of a sudden it stopped working. The card stopped working. And so I said to the cashier, what gives? Oh, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. We don't have that. We don't give 5% off. So naturally, being me, I asked for the store manager, and the store manager came over like, what's the problem? I said, well, see this? This doesn't work anymore. This card used to work great. Doesn't work anymore. And he said, well, we don't do that anymore. I said, oh, yeah, why is that? He said, well, it's not fair. I said, it's not fair to who? He said, well, it's not fair to the other customers, because they don't get that. So we thought that, we shouldn't do that anymore, because we shouldn't give preferential treatment to others, that are different from regular customers. I thought, you've lost your mind. I'm a loyal customer. I know that I get 5% off. I come here first because I know I'm going to get whatever it is, it's 5% off. I know that's going to happen. But you took that away. He said, well, I'll tell you what. If you find a better price, we'll match it. How does that work? Well, if you're in another store and you want to buy something and you find it, come on over here, we'll match the price. I said, you've lost your mind. You think that I'm going to go to another store that's got a better price and then I'm going to come back to you so you can match it? That's nuts. I'm going to go buy all my stuff, everything, including the stuff that I was going to buy right now at another store. Because you've withdrawn your loyalty to me, so why should I have any loyalty to you? Well, you know what? After a few years of me mentioning this every once in a while, I don't mention it all the time, but every once in a while, Lowe's now offers 5%, and they have for quite a while now. They offer 5% to anybody who wants to sign up for their little program. You don't even have to be a contractor anymore. Those morons at Lowe's have figured out that they've lost so many customers that they better go back to what they used to do that worked. So if you go to Lowe's, you'll see that they'll give you 5% off. All you have to do is get this card. Well, I happened to run into someone over the weekend who worked at Lowe's. And that's where I found out about the truth in Lowe's laying off thousands of people. Lowe's has laid off and notified their assistant store managers that they don't need them anymore. We don't need you guys. Assistant store managers, you guys who've started out at the bottom and you worked your way all the way up to assistant store manager with your eyes on the prize, that maybe, if everything works out right, maybe you can be a store manager. Well, Lowe's cut their knees off and said, we don't need so many assistant store managers. We don't need 4 or 5 per store. Competing for the top prize, we only need 1, maybe 2. But it's okay. It's okay if you have been notified that your job is gone in about a year, we'll let you apply for other positions. So these senior types, these people who've been with Lowe's for a while, know the ins and outs, the operation, the products, the services, the policies. They apply. And what happens? They don't get the jobs. Why? Because they are at a senior pay level. So who gets the jobs? Well, the newest people there. The ones who've been there the least. The ones that know the least. They get the jobs. So that's my story about Lowe's. And I've got more. I can bring up some articles about it. I've got the links, but I just wanted to share that with you. Rich, my dad saying, son, here's what you do. You go to school and you work hard. You get a good education and you work hard. And you get a job and you work hard. And you work hard. And you work 40 hours a week or more. You give more time to the job. And then you get recognized. And then you get promoted. And then you work hard. And then you get promoted. Then you work harder. Then you work 60 hours a week. And you work hard. And you can grow within that corporation. And 40 years later, you get the gold watch and you can retire. Security, that's where it's at. I said, Dad, IBM is laying off 15,000 people a week. Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about General Motors? Are we talking about AT&T? Are we talking about those guys? Who are we talking about? These big companies. Because what he was talking about in his day was over. It was over in the 1970s. And he just wasn't aware of it. Not that he wasn't smart, because he was. He just wasn't aware of how these big companies were laying off and laying off. And so Lowe's is just one more example. And so what are they doing? So my friend at Lowe's and I were talking, and my friend said, they think that appliances, you just order your appliances online. Really? Really? So someone's going to order a refrigerator without test driving or kicking the tires on the refrigerator? Is that really what we're going to do? I don't think so. Because if you get a chance to see these Asian refrigerators and you find out how flimsy the doors are, and you find out that you open the side-by-side refrigerator side door and you close it, and the freezer door pops open because of the air pressure of just closing the refrigerator side, the minute you get that, you're going to say, well, I bought this on a credit card. I don't want it. This thing's junk. And you're going to call up that big box big box improvement store, maybe like Lowe's, and say, this thing's junk. I don't want to come pick it up because I'm not paying for it. And I bought it on my credit card, and I'll dispute the bill because you're selling junk. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, if you go to the store that sells them, let's say Lowe's currently does sell them, and you open the door and you go, wait a minute, the freezer door pops open when I close the refrigerator side. Why would I want this one? And the salesperson would say, well, actually, you don't want that one. And I was going to recommend that you go get this other brand, this American brand, because that doesn't happen. And I didn't want you to be disappointed. And I didn't want the store to have to send the truck to pick it up. So it's in everybody's interest that you buy an American brand where the door stays closed. So that's my take on Lowe's. Rich Scheben, I know it was a rant. Do you have any comments?
Well, I can comment on a lot of things, from fascism to the fact that we're lowering our bars of standards and expectations, which is destroying America, rewarding mediocrity, which basically has direct proportion to the lack of ingenuity, productivity, and innovation that we see in America. And that's why, when I talk about things like interest rates, I know you're saying to yourself, gosh, how can you dovetail an interest rate conversation in here? But interest rates are a function of growth, wages, and inflation. Well, growth, wages, and inflation are descending like gravity, and we've exported inflation to low-cost producing countries, and that's why we get lower quality, because the super wealthy and executives want higher profits, and that's part of our fascist system that we have here in America. That's why only 4 to 6% of Americans make their primary income from being self-employed. So until we drop political correctness and create the same rules, laws, accountability for everybody, and eliminate group identity politics, the lowering of bars and standards and expectations will continue to descend.
Yeah. When we come back, I've got a little bit more I'd like to share about Lowe's. I was talking about Lowe's and my experience with Lowe's, and if they want to come after me, they're welcome to do that. And the more they come after me, the more I'll talk about them. And it's all true. And so I've talked to a number of former Lowe's employees. Not one of them, not one of all the former Lowe's employees I know thinks well of Lowe's. They think, I think very poorly of their policies, procedures, and practices. And they feel that they're being really overworked. And they all say one thing in common, and that is that Lowe's keeps hiring people who really don't know what they're doing. They hire people at the low end of the pay scale. And so when I think about that, I think of, you go to Lowe's or some of the other big box stores, and someone will be milling around there with a smock on and say, can you help me? Yeah. What do you need? Well, I'm looking for this. Can you help me? Yeah, I'll help you. So they know less than you do about where things are, number one, and they know less about the product you're looking for than you do. So how can they be of help? And let me just give you an example. I was at another store, Big Orange. That would be Home Depot. And I was in the plumbing department, and I was looking for a specific kind of CPVC, which is the high temperature water ball valve for plumbing. Hot water, not cold water, hot water. And I wanted to know why the handles were blue, because they used to be black and red. Black would be for cold water and red would be for hot water, and I didn't understand what the blue was all about. Maybe there's a reason for it, but I didn't understand. So I asked this guy, and he said, yeah, he could help me. And so I asked him where the red ones were, or the black ones, and he didn't know. He said, well, I'm really from, like, the gardening department. But you can ask me any question about gardening, and I can tell you the answer. I said, okay, great. So, they got those numbers on fertilizer. Those bags of fertilizer that you guys sell? They have 3 numbers, like 10, 10, 10, or 5, 10, 5, numbers like that. What do they mean? And he said, well, nitrogen, and then he said, I believe he said sodium. And I looked at him like, what? Sodium. And I said, that's 2 out of 2 you got wrong. I'm from corporate headquarters. And that guy just about wet his pants right then and there. So here we have a guy who's telling me he's in a department that, if I ask him a question about his department, he knows the answers. He didn't know the answers to that. How simple of a question is that? What would be more simple? Do you know where the garden hoses are? Can you point me to that? I guess that would be a little more simple. So here we have people in a store, brick and mortar, and they're paying for all this overhead. and they don't have employees that know what they're doing. Now, we used to. But Scheben, do you remember going to a hardware store years ago, and you could say to the employee in the hardware store, he'd be wearing an apron, and you could say, my screen door sags. And, do you have anything that would fix that? And he'd say, yeah. You need a couple screw eyes and one of these little turnbuckles and a piece of this braided cable. And what you do is you put it diagonally from the top part where the hinge is to the bottom part on the non-hinge side, and you turn this turnbuckle, and it will remove the sag in that door. Because lots of people have that problem. You're just, the most recent. They would be able to answer questions like, yeah, sure, we've got a repair kit for your screen door latch. We've got that. Yeah, we've got a way that if you want to take the screens off the side of your house on the windows, and you want to remember where they go, we've got these little numbers, and you can tap them into the window ledge there, and one on the screen, and you'll have them all numbered. You'll be able to put them back since they only fit where they came off. They had the answers. Now we have these people who are they pass a test. They have to have a pulse, and they can wear the smock and act like they know what they're doing. We've lost our way, Rich Scheben.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hard work, effort, results. Yeah. Qualifications don't matter anymore. It's all about political correctness, group identity politics, not upsetting or hurting someone's feelings. And that's why quality of everything is going down in America, because the big corporate oligarchies are shifting all their businesses overseas, and we've imported deflation. And it's going to get a lot worse, Vince.
We'll be right back. So Rich, I mentioned this story before. I walked into Lowe's. This was within the last few months. And in the parking lot, they had this big sign, accepting applications. And they're really proud of that sign. It was a pretty big sign. So I walked in, and the lady greets me right by the lumber entrance there. And she says, "Hey, welcome to Lowe's." And I said, "Well, thanks so much. You got a sign outside, and it says accepting applications." And I was doing my best Columbo. I was confused. I looked like I didn't know which end was up. Had blue jeans on, and I looked like I was I was working on the farm, and I was picking up some supplies. And I hate going to Lowe's. I really do. And I only go there when I absolutely, positively got to get it, and I have to get it now, and I'm stuck. And so there's no other place where I can get it within 50 more miles or so. So I was in Lowe's, and she greeted me, and she was really polite, and she said, "No, right down there, right down there. That's where you go. You can get your application right down there." And I said, "But I don't have any skills." And she smiled, and she wanted to counsel me. And she said, "It's okay. It's okay. I don't have any either. And they hired me."
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is terrible. And she's the same gal that was at the checkout that tried to charge me like $1,000 for some corner bead molding that I bought, because it was about $2 per stick, and I forget how many sticks I bought, but it was close to like $100 worth, so I could start finishing the living room here and get it spackled and so forth. And so I bought a 5-gallon bucket of spackle and some metal corner bead. And so the bill came out to $1,000. And it's like, you think something's wrong with this number here? And, naturally she wouldn't know, because she didn't know the products. She didn't know the prices. She had no clue. And that part about no skills was right. Now, here's the other part about the no skills. Let's say it really was $1,000 worth of material, and she got it scanned in at $100 instead. She wouldn't have known the difference, because it wasn't until I said, "Hey, this is not $1,000 worth of stuff here. This is like $100 worth. Let's go do this again." So my son and I had to show her, the right barcodes and so forth to get this done right. Now, to her credit, the barcodes were stamped on each individual stick of corner bead. This is metal corner bead. It's like 10 feet long. It's real flimsy metal, and it's on the corner of sheetrock. And you nail it on, and you spackle over it, and you just have a nice, strong edge. You know, if you bump into the corner of a sheetrock wall, you won't tear it up as much because it's a metal corner. Well, there were some boxes on the floor. The guy who put the corner bead up on the vertical rack left the boxes on the floor, and I thought, well, this is, perfect, because I can get these boxes, and I can empty boxes, and I can put the corner bead in there, and it'll make a safer trip so the corner bead won't get bent on the way home in the truck bed, strapped to the truck bed. So I told her that I had these boxes. Would it be okay if I took them? She said, sure, they're empty boxes. So she scans in the barcode for the full box. And then she says, we got, maybe 40 of them. So it'd be like I was buying 40 boxes. 40 full boxes. Now I was buying 40 pieces that came out of one of the boxes. So that's where the problem was. But she couldn't figure that out. We had to help her figure that out. So that's the high cost of cheap labor. The high cost of cheap labor. And you get frustrated with things like that. So what about all those people behind me, trying to check out? That was like a 15-minute job, explaining to her why the numbers were wrong and how to get the right numbers. And what was it all because of? It was all because of me, because I wanted these boxes to safely take home the corner bead. And it was because of the guy who left them on the floor, who stacked the rack. He just left them there for somebody like me to say, boy, that's a great way to get these corner beads home. So all because of the low-wage guy who left the boxes on the floor, who enticed me to ask if I could take them home with me, to the low-wage gal who had no skills, who admitted it, who couldn't figure out whether she was charging me for the box or the each. There you have it. It's the American way. That's Lowe's. And, if Lowe's doesn't like what I have to say, they can call me. They can come on the air with me. They can explain to me why they're doing what they're doing and why it is that their employees have no clue, or at least a bunch of them have no clue. At least the ones I run into have no clue, or almost no clue, or hardly a clue. Rich, you're in Montana, I'm in Missouri. Are you seeing the same kind of lack of skills in stores like Lowe's?
But Vince, this is happening everywhere. What they're doing is grooming the public for things like robotics, automation, artificial intelligence. It's going to take a ton of jobs in the future, and that's even doing so now. You look at McDonald's kiosks. They get rid of cashiers. You look at robots are doing surgeries. Drones are delivering pizzas. This stuff is happening all over the place. So they're lowering the bars of standards and expectations. So as the public starts going into these box stores or stores in general, and when you look at retail in general, especially brick and mortar, I mean, they're dying. People, it's not just because of people buying on the internet. I did my research on that. That's only like 9% of people buying on the internet. People are broke. The middle class is broke. The bottom 93% is broke. They're tapped out. So what they're trying to do is not just, feed this addiction to power, money, and control by the elite fascist system, but what they're doing is lowering those bars of standards and expectations, so when they go fully automation, people are going to say, well, I don't miss the people that much because they really didn't help me. Do you remember about a month ago I gave my high jump analogy? I think this is a very appropriate time to redo that. Do you remember that?
Go ahead, please do it.
Okay, this is what America used to be like. Let's say I was an employer, pardon me, and I was hiring one person to be a high jumper, to add to my high jumping team because there was a high jumping industry, let's just say. So I put the bar at 6 feet. There's 500 applicants. I said, okay, test number one, everybody jump over that 6-foot bar. So what happens? I keep my standards and expectations high. Only 5 people, 1%, can jump that bar. So basically I ask them about their work ethic, their diet, how do you keep your weight down, how often do you work out, I ask them questions relating to hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications. So I get the best high jumper when I hire that person. That's the way America was. Now today, because of government regulations, political correctness, group identity politics, regulations, all this stuff, now I can't have a 6-foot bar for my first interview. I've got to have it 6 inches. So that means 495 people pass. Okay, 99% of the people pass the first test. So instead of asking questions about work ethic, about proven results, about qualifications, now to taper down from 495 people, I got to break everybody down by skin pigmentation and race and gender and sexual orientation and religion and ideology. And see, this is what America is today, folks. We have lost our way. We have let the mainstream media and the powers that be manufacture perception, pity, guilt, ideology, and sway public opinion. Until we start speaking up and control the narratives, the memes, the talking points, and the microphone that affects our future, things are going to get worse. We've allowed the powers that be to change the United States of America to the divided groups of America. These ideas and solutions has to come from the bottom up and not the top down. Now, you've heard me say the word fascism a couple times today already, Vince. Did you get that video I sent you on YouTube?
I did.
Okay. You let me know when you want to start talking about that.
In just a minute. You mentioned something I find germane to our discussion. You talked about robotics. So I have a friend. You know this guy. He's been at our Get Prepared Expo. And so he has had a problem with his kidney, had a tumor on it. So the surgery was going to be done with robotics. Sounds really good, precision control. So before the surgery, he has the biopsy. And he goes in and has the biopsy, comes out, and he gets a call from his doctor. And his doctor says, I got good news. And I'm like, well, I've got good news for you. Your liver's okay. We biopsied your liver, and it's good. He goes, tumors in the kidney. Well, we went right through the kidney into the liver, and your liver's okay, but we're going to have you come back to get your biopsy of your kidney. So, we may think that everything's fine with this computer control, and I'm just telling you that it's not perfect. So here at USA Prepares, we get lots and lots of anecdotal evidence, stories about things that have happened. And that's just one more story about how the current system isn't working all that well. But, when you hear about it, you hear, well, this is great. There's more precision because, surgeons aren't all that skillful anymore, and their hands shake and their eyesight's not so good, so we can have a robot do it for us and everything will be much better. Well, it's not necessarily the case. Rich Sheben's with us, and we're going to talk about fascism in just a minute. What's it mean? We'll be right back. Rich Sheben, offgridmontana.com, offgridmontana.com. I'm Vin Finelli. Rich Sheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. He wrote the book, One New York Man's Journey to off-grid living in Montana. Yeah, excellent book if you want to know what it's like. Rich Sheben, fascism.
You bet, Vince. Well, I'll tell you, it's I saw this YouTube video, and I've read several articles about what is happening in America, and some of you might be aware of this, but the post-2009 definition of fascism has literally been changed, even in dictionaries. And they're referring to the new definition in the context of right-wing ideology or movements that's fundamentally opposed to democracy and liberalism. Okay, first of all, liberalism has been taken over by the globalists, okay? There's no liberalism left because there's such a huge inequality between the haves and have-nots, between the aristocracy and the serfs, if you will. So they're not liberal. What they're trying to do is the super elite are trying to get control because of their addiction to power, money, and control, and basically take advantage of the low information voters and say, here, I'll give you a phone or I'll give you a couple of bucks a month, vote for the left. And that's exactly what's happening. The correct definition, if you look at dictionaries pre-2009, are things in the context of a system of government marked by totalitarian dictatorship, socialist, communist, for social and economic control, engineering, suppression of the opposition by the system. Those are the definitions that is fascism. Folks, what they want is to keep the low information voter dumbed down. That's why you always hear me say the elite wants to distract, dumb down, and divide the American people by as many groups as possible. Race, gender, sex, religion, ideology, and you can see the writing on the wall where they're even trying to get generations to fight against each other, like millennials against the baby boomers, for example. That's why half of the questions is race baiting, gender baiting, sex baiting, religion baiting, ideology baiting, because they need to keep people in chaos. They need infighting. This is how a divide and conquer strategy works. This is how you lower the bars of standards and expectations. This is how you insult everybody regarding work ethic, ability, and intelligence, which ends up degrading and disrespecting every group that demands to lower the bars of standards and expectations. This is what fascism is. Fascism, and you heard me mention earlier, only 4 to 6% of people in America make their primary income from being self-employed. Fascism is when the big corporate oligarchies have created an alliance with big governments, and they're protected by the court system and the mainstream media. That's what fascism is, folks. And we don't even have anything close to capitalism. The people on the left who say capitalist systems don't work, that's why they may mention the term crony capitalism. We're not even close to capitalism. They want the low information voter to say, oh, it's big government's fault. No, it's big corporations' fault. No, it's big government fault. No, it's big corporations' fault. They want to take advantage of every crisis out there and keep people dumb. It's the alliance of the two, and that's why the big corporations love high regulations. They love having lobbying rights. They love high minimum wage laws. Everything that keeps the poor, medium-sized business from competing against one another. That's why the Amazons and all these big companies in the tech industry are considered to be monopolies and oligarchies. And they're breaking antitrust laws every hour, okay? They're controlling everything. And we're heading towards a society that's going to be make the movie 1984 look pretty good. So we need to get back to expanding small and medium-sized businesses and break this fascist system. Vince?
Yeah, and when you look at those small businesses, if you look at that, even that corner hardware store where they knew what they're doing, you compare that to today, and you look at Home Depot and you look at Lowe's, and you wonder, why is it that the prices are identical? Why is it that the prices are exactly the same at Lowe's and Home Depot on many items? Why is that? Obviously, and why are the prices the same at gas stations all over Lebanon, Missouri, and Springfield, Missouri? How come they're the same? Well, they get together and say, let's set these prices. Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. One New York man's journey to off-grid living in Montana. Rich Scheben's book. offgridmontana.com. Rich Scheben, we're going to talk about off-grid living this hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to start? You want me to talk about that article?
Yeah, what a great article. And let's talk about this. Is it's an article from Forbes. Mm-hmm. And the article says that self-reliant homesteaders are delusional and mooching off civil society. So that'd be you, Rich Scheben. That'd be me. Yeah, we're just a bunch of moochers, according to what Forbes says. And so are many who are in class with us. What a bunch of moochers we are. Well, here's what we have to say. Why don't we start, Rich? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, this article was written by a guy by the name of Adam Ozimek, and I'm sure I'm butchering his name, But that's all I'm going to apologize for regarding what he said in the article, because he is apparently a PhD in economics at Temple University. So it's really sad that people preach things that they know nothing about and they've never done. It's kind of like somebody being an anti-anything who's never even read about it or done it to experience it. And obviously this guy probably fits that bill. Okay, regarding this particular article on off-gridders and self-reliant people being delusional, I got to tell you right now, this guy doesn't comment on the things that really matter, because what we need in America is skill sets, folks. All we need is to break up all the big companies, all the big oligarchies. And I'll just go briefly over what had happened to me in my life, and I've mentioned this on the air many times, but back in the late 70s, I tried to get a job with the New York City Fire Department. I was going to work 20 years with them, get my pension, come out to Montana, live off-grid, and live my outdoor adventure dream. Well, that was the year that the women groups of New York City sued because they couldn't pass the physical test, so they lowered the bars of standards and expectations. I said, okay. So I went to forestry school, trying to get a job with the National Forest Service, graduated upstate New York from Paul Smith's College, and my dream was to come out to Montana and do the same thing. Well, I went to an interview, and they told me they would not hire me as a white male. They hired, this is the early 80s now, they hired two women fresh out of high school, I should say two girls, fresh out of high school with no experience and no education. And then when I was close to 20-plus years in the pharmaceutical industry, I was diagnosed with spinal stenosis and nerve damage. I was working for GlaxoSmithKline, and I told them that I had neurosurgeons writing my company saying that Rich needs to reduce his driving by 50%. They told me, Human Resources literally told me that part-time job shares were for females only. Now, I have no problem with anybody, any individual, or any company being promoting or self-righteous or anything. But I have dozens of articles here. I just picked one up. Drug giant pleads guilty, fined $3 billion for drug marketing. For illegal promotion of its products, failure to report safety data, alleged false price reporting as part of the largest healthcare fraud settlement in U.S. history, and it's about GlaxoSmithKline. So, if you're going to say something, you better practice what you preach. And this is why I always say, folks, we have to have the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody. So regarding Adam Ozimek, where was your big mouth there before I started living off-grid? Now, granted, that was always my dream, my goal, to live off the land, and because I'm a nature fanatic. However, how come you didn't say anything then? We can fix this economy since you're an economist. Why don't we break up all the big companies, eliminate lobbying, eliminate oligarchies and monopolies? Let's let the people decide how much net worth an individual corporation should have, especially when they're in the billions creating these NGOs and creating treasonous espionage and sedition against our own country. Why don't we have negative interest rates, means testing, 100-year mortgages, and take the mean household debt and give that amount to each home, since all these quantitative easing programs where 95% of the money has gone to the top 1 to 7%. Why don't we reinstate Glass-Steagall? Why don't you talk about the fact that the average American spends 7 to 8 hours per day on television and their smartphone? How about learning to garden, raising animals, hunting and fishing, butchering? How about alternative energy? Okay? How about all this smart everything that's spying on people? How about starting new colleges where we have skill sets and none of these electives? How about creating teachers from kindergarten to the highest level in college, where you have to have 15 years of successful private sector experience and teach practical skills instead of theory? How about practice what you preach laws, which I talk about on the air all the time? As an economist, I think you're really missing the boat, and what we're all doing is we're fighting the wrong battles. We are letting the aristocracy, who basically have people bought and paid for in their groups, to distract us, to dumb us down, and divide us by groups. And that's exactly what's going on. Off-grid living, self-sufficiency is exactly what America needs. We need to decentralize, folks. We have 90% of people living in urban, suburban America. And I can talk about economy for hours. I'm telling you right now, we are in a deflationary spiral with stagflationary consequences for the middle class. It's a hybrid system that is going to bankrupt the bottom 93% of people. It's going to be ugly with what's coming. Trump inherited sabotage and demolition. He's doing a really good job. He's working hard. I don't think he's going to be able to turn this around. Basically, with the status quo, or like I like to refer to it as an incognito caste system, it's not a left-right paradigm. It's the aristocracy versus the serfs. It's an addiction to power, money, and control. And that's why we talked about fascism earlier. So this so-called PhD in economics needs to be talking about things that's going to make a difference for the bottom 93%. And if we decentralize and some of that population moves to rural America and learn these skill sets, maybe they can live a decent life, because the bottom 93% is talking about survival, okay? We're talking, while the top 7%, or especially the top few percent, are talking about everything in the world regarding their lifestyle. So this self-reliance is the delusion. I think you're delusional, because homesteaders, survivalists, preppers, all this stuff that you refer to in this article is exactly what the elites do. Instead of, I talked about a self-sufficiency preparedness school in my book. And guess what? How come you haven't sent money to me to start this? How come the multimillionaires and billionaires haven't sent money to me to start this? Instead, they're going to the Cook Islands, New Zealand, they're buying big ranches and putting underground bunkers in it because they don't give a damn about the people. Well, let's start concentrating on the bottom 93%, on how we can help the people. And that's one of the reasons why Trump said he wants to transfer power back to the people. And that's why I say we should try to help him out. He's not doing everything in the world. He's not perfect. He's not an angel. Nobody is. Okay? I'm one of the biggest imperfect sinners out there. But I'm trying to give ideas and solutions to help the bottom 93%. Unlike this Adam guy, this so-called PhD in economy, who's doing everything to degrade and disrespect people who are trying to survive. And folks, I got to tell you, with the corruption, the manipulation, the nepotism, everything that's going on out there, self-sufficiency and off-grid living are great plan A's, okay? There's not a lot left out there because we've lowered, remember the analogy I just gave on my high jumper employer story. We cannot control our own destiny anymore because hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications mean very little compared to group identity politics. And then you dovetail group identity politics with the central bank corruption and monetary policies, Keynesian economics, and the demographic situation that we're in. Trust me, it's a big rigging of the game, and there aren't many opportunities left or options left. So this is why I'm a huge proponent of living off-grid. And as I mentioned on Vince's show last week, if anybody's interested, I also am selling an off-grid property, 80 acres, adjacent to over 1 million acres of National Forest Service. So if anybody's interested, you can contact me at mtmountains@gmail.com. That's MT, the abbreviation for Montana, the word mountains, which is plural, at gmail.com if anybody's interested. When I read this article, I could not believe the audacity of this person. In fact, the person who referred this article and transferred it, she starts out talking about what he said I'm going to literally quote, "It's always interesting when someone smug and sanctimonious writes a clueless diatribe about other group of people being smug and sanctimonious." So when I saw that an economist for Moody's and Forbes had written an op-ed calling self-reliant homesteaders delusional, I knew I'd be in for some misinformed hilarity. And that's what's going on today, folks. The powers that be are controlling the mainstream media. Their job is to manufacture perception, pity, guilt, and ideology. Their job is to sway public opinion and hold on to the narratives. There's only 5 companies who control 95% of the media, and 8 people who have a higher net worth than half of the planet Earth combined. And this is why we have to speak up. We have to say it like it is. We have to say the truth. We have to stand for principle. And if they do it, you should be able to do it too. We gave a lot of lives for free speech, our Bill of Rights, and our Constitution. Vince?
Yeah, when we come back, I've got a comment on what you said. I'd love to have this author come to the farm and say, hey, listen, I've got a leak in the hydraulics of the bulldozer. Can you help me fix it? Offgridmontana.com, offgridmontana.com. Rich Scheben's with us. Rich, I've got a couple comments to make. This article absolutely frosts me. And here's why. When you talk about self-sufficiency, when you talk about preparedness, what we're talking about is using less, living with less, living more frugally, using less of everything, less electricity, less fuel, less fertilizer, less, okay? Becoming more and more and more efficient. That's what happens when you want to be self-sufficient. You realize that if you're on your own, you just can't run out to the store and buy more and more and more. You look at smaller packaging. You look at, what am I going to do with all this trash? This over-packaging that comes from products that marketeers want us to buy that causes the trash problem that we all are burdened with. Well, during the break, I ran down to the kitchen. Mrs. Finelli was in the kitchen. The lights were off. Why were the lights off in the kitchen? It's overcast. It's not dark, but it's not real bright in the kitchen with the lights off. The only light that was in there was coming through the windows and the doors. Why was that? Well, because Mrs. Finelli knows that today is an overcast day. She can look at the system control panel. She can see the photovoltaic production, which is down today because it's overcast. And she realizes that her husband may not have all the power he needs to run the broadcast in the studio. She thought that it'd be better that I had lights and see what I'm doing and not bang into the wrong buttons and dials. Then she thought it was more important that I had light to see rather than her. And that was really kind of her. But that's the kind of thing that happens when you're off grid. Now, there's this article that Rich and I are discussing. It's about homesteaders and self-reliance type people being delusional. Well, the article goes on to say that the author of this PhD gets information, knowledge, because he's a big fan of sitcoms. Well, that's my term. Doomsday preppers. To me, it's like a sitcom or a stoop-com. Why do I say that? Because I know the casting director. I know her very well. She's an instructor here at USA Prepares. And I know that she and I have had discussions like, why don't you bring some more educational content into Doomsday Preppers, which is now not on the air. And we got it all the way up from less than 50% to 50% educational content. And I introduced her to 2 people who are USA Prepares instructors who were on Doomsday Preppers. Their names are Alan and Franco. And they had an aquaponics operation at their farms, or at their locations, near Springfield, Missouri. And they were featured on Doomsday Preppers. And Franco will tell you the story, he told it publicly, that the producer said to him, hey, I'll tell you what, those bugs that you grow to feed your fish? Let me get some video of you eating one of those. And Franco said, no way. No way. So the director said, I'll tell you what, you eat one, I'll eat one. So Franco picked out the smallest one. He ate it. They got him on video. That was the intro, the feature, the commercial for that particular episode of Doomsday Preppers. Franco's daughter was saying, "Oh, Daddy, that's disgusting." And it was. When he ate this bug, he said it was really disgusting. He was sick for 3 days after eating it. literally. And then he turned to the director and he said, your turn. The director said, no way. So Doomsday Preppers is theater. It's theater. It's not reality. And so to me, it's like a comedy full of all kinds of errors and misrepresentations. And so this author gets a lot of his knowledge from shows he's a big fan of, like Doomsday Preppers. Can you imagine that? So, Brooklyn Bagwell, the director, casting director, Alan Franco. I was on the phone with Doomsday Preppers, the casting director, Brooklyn Bagwell. I know her. I mean, she's been to our expos, a couple of them. She's been on the air with me about five 1-hour broadcasts. And off the air, she invited me to be on Doomsday Preppers. She said, we'd like to have you on Doomsday Preppers. Now, I was kind of concerned about it, and I thought about it, and I said, tell you what, I'll do it. But here's what I would do. I will be on, but you know how you guys have contests, and you pit one team against the other team to see which team comes out on top. How about this? There are a whole bunch of people, and they were at the time, that had expos, preparedness expos. I said, why don't you pick a couple of those guys, and we'll have a head-to-head. We'll have the Super Bowl of preparedness expos, and we will go head-to-head with each other, and let's see how it works out. And she said that was a great idea. So she pursued it, but none of the other guys that claim to have either the nationally largest expo, which is not true, or another self-reliant type expo, promoter who thought his was real big too, and us, and we could go head-to-head. But none of the other guys was willing to do it. So that's why you haven't seen Vinny on TV. I've been on TV before. I've been on the NBC Today show years ago with some of the technology that we developed, but I haven't been on television since. And that's okay with me. That's okay with me. I don't really need it, and I don't want it. So that's my story about Doomsday Preppers. But it's theater. That's not reality. I know 3 people, and I've talked to them at length about their experience with being on Doomsday Preppers. And they are persuaded, we'll use that word, to do things that they would not ordinarily do on camera. I'm talking about acting. I'm talking about scenes that are set up that would not happen in real life. And if Doomsday Preppers wants to challenge me and sue me, go ahead, because it'll all come out, the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Scenes that they've set up, scenes that they've made or encouraged the participants, the preppers, if you will, the survivalists, if you will, things that they were encouraged to do that they would never do unless they were pushed into doing it. And so when you see this on the big blue screen, you think that, boy, these people really do this. The answer is no, they don't do everything that you see. They're conned into it, like eating the bugs, like burying supplies along the trail, burying supplies in these loosely fitting plastic Walmart containers that the bugs will be there as soon as you're done covering it with the leaves. Stuff like that. Theater. Baking sweet treats to eat because we want to have comfort food during the collapse. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And that's the kind of stuff that happened on Doomsday Preppers. I've seen it. So I called him out on it, and the reason I got involved with Doomsday Preppers in the first place is I was at John Stadtmiller's house in Texas. And this was many years ago. And he said, Vinny, I know you don't have television, but you got to see this. So I was in his living room watching this new program to me. And I was stomping around like, I don't know anybody who behaves like this. I'm not talking about John Stadtmiller. I'm talking about the theater I saw on television. I said, nobody behaves like this that I know. We don't do that. And this was Doomsday Preppers. So because of that, I called him up. I called up Doomsday Preppers, and, I called up National Geographic in Washington, D.C. I said, I want to talk to the chief. the person in charge of Doomsday Preppers. They had no idea what I was talking about. National Geographic corporate headquarters had no idea what I was talking about. And the reason is because Doomsday Preppers was contracted out to Sharp Entertainment. Sharp Entertainment produced, videoed the whole thing called Doomsday Preppers for National Geographic. So when you think of National Geographic, you think of, boy, these guys are uncovering and exposing what's really happening. These are the good guys. But they had this company called Sharp Entertainment producing Doomsday Preppers, which in my opinion is pure theater, with a little bit of education, a modicum of education thrown in. Rich, do you have any comments about that?
Oh, absolutely. I get offers all the time. In fact, I just got my last offer about a week or two ago to do a documentary or a reality show. I get them all the time. I've had probably 40, 50 offers. And I basically say, really not interested, but I might be if I get final editing rights. And they don't want to do that because everything is scripted. But going back to that article we were talking about for off-grid living, for a lot of people, it's a last resort. It's a survival resort because they want to learn skill sets. They want privacy. They want that commodity that doesn't exist. When you look at the economic numbers where the books are not cooked, real wages are down, retail sales are down, productivity growth down, personal discretionary income down, nearest durable goods down. The middle class is broke. We're running on debt, credit, subsidies, and consumption bubbles, and that's what we're stuck in. And free market supply and demand are practically history. 1 out of 6 people are on welfare and food stamps. Our unemployed in America would be the 68th largest nation in the world. I mean, people are losing ground. Home ownership rate is the lowest in 60 years. You know, people say, well, how come the stock market's up? Well, I'll tell you why the stock market's up. Because central banks, and not just the Federal Reserve here in America, but the central banks all around the world are in cahoots, and they're buying our stock. And guess what the CEOs are doing? They're getting basically low interest or sometimes zero interest loans to buy back stock, pocket some of the profit. It looks good on paper. And then they go out and issue bonds, which is a debt instrument because the stock market's looking good. So people say, oh, wow, this company must be doing great. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all fake and phony. And people who are waking up to this realize that unless you become semi-self-sufficient, you know, nobody's 100% self-sufficient. Nobody. I mean, I don't drill my own oil and refine my own gasoline, but I try to hunt my own food or raise my own animals or preserve food with canning, grow my own garden, create alternative energy. And the best thing about doing all this, Vince, is the fact that I've helped so many people. I've probably had thousands of people come here to my hobby farm over the years, from Europe, from all over the world, saying, hey, this is, I want to learn this. You know, I don't see good things happening in our economic industry. We don't even have anything legitimate anymore. Markets, fundamentals, valuations, everything is smoke and mirrors. Everything is scripted. And that's why I say Donald Trump inherited sabotage and demolition. I would love for him to create a situation where our economy flies and does well. But you look at demographics, debt, credit, pensions, valuations, they're all headwinds for future rates of growth. So I just don't see, by looking at my math, things getting better, especially for the bottom 93%, because of the corruption, the manipulation, the nepotism, and everything that's happening here in America. So people need to create plan Bs and Cs and Ds. And for you know, people who heard my story briefly earlier, people say, well, why didn't you sue for discrimination? I contacted 30 different attorneys. One attorney told me I have a 1 in 1,000 chance of winning a reverse discrimination lawsuit. One attorney told me if you're a poor/middle-class white male heterosexual with a Christian name, you have no restitution or rights. One attorney told me that I didn't have enough group self-pity points. And this is America. That's why I gave that analogy of that high jumper employer earlier in the show, because that's what America is today. Hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications mean almost nothing. That's why I say 90% of the college degrees are worthless. If you're a parent or a grandparent out there, buy your kid some off-grid property, have him learn skill sets or her, and this way it could be a bug-out property for the rest of the family. Maybe somebody has a job already working out of the home. All you need is a phone line. I mean, there's so many ways that you can deal with what's coming. But we're teaching our youth how to push buttons, manage paper, and be politically correct. That's not going to cut it, especially when they come out of a college where 90% of the degrees are worthless, and then they miss out on time leverage on their assets because they got to rent because they have so many school loans to pay off. We have $1 trillion in school loans, credit card loans, and auto loans, outstanding with the default to go with it. Do you really think this economy is going to fly off the handles in a positive way? We are heading towards a recession/depression unless Donald Trump pulls off a miracle. He's doing a lot of great things, but he has the globalists are against him. Now remember, the liberal left Democrats, they've been taken over by the globalists. Okay, how many times have you seen the new media interview somebody on socialism and they ask what it is and they don't even know what the answer is? That's why they chant. That's why they yell. That's why they scream. That's why they're violent. That's why they say KKK, no Trump USA, no fascist USA. And that's why we went over fascism today. Because every person, every group is being used. We are allowing the elite to poison us against ourselves. And the only way to change things is to wake up the masses. Vince?
I was wondering if you're asking for Noah. And I'll tell you what I mean by that when we come back. Rich Sheben's with us. OffGridMontana.com. Rich Sheben's with us. OffGridMontana.com. So, Rich, last week I was on the air with Dr. Joel Wallach. We're on the air with him every Friday, hour number 1. And I was telling him that there was a man visiting the farmhouse, and he has type 2 diabetes. And I asked him, you have still on insulin? Yeah. Type 2, right? Yeah. Well, I got a guy coming on the air and shortly, and we can fix that. You have to change your diet and add some supplements, and we'll get you off that insulin. He said, but I love to eat. I love to eat. And I was astonished. Mrs. Finelli was next to me. I get that look. Knock it off. So I stopped talking. I said, well, okay, I'll see you guys. And I left, and I went into the studio. And I told Dr. Wallach the story. I said, I'm frustrated. Here's a guy we can get off insulin injections. All he has to do is add supplements and change his diet, and he can get off it. But he doesn't want to do it. I said, I'm really frustrated. This bothers me. But it's not just this. It's the case where I had this meetup, and people would say, boy, it'd be great to have a farm. It'd be great to, if we could all live together. Boy, wouldn't that be great? We'd all, this whole meetup group, if we could live together and support each other. And boy, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, it would be great. So I found this place, 640 acres. It's 1 square mile near me, just down the road, literally down the road. So I told him about it, and I said, yeah, well, I've got it. About 1,500 an acre. It's already divided into 2, 5, 10, 20 acre parcels. One way in, one way out. There could be a village center. There could be a place for village gardening. You would each own your own place. We'd have some rules. You couldn't, erect junk there. There'd be some building requirements. You'd own your own property. You'd be in control, but there'd be some rules so that it would all work. It'd be village governance, village power, off-grid power, village defense, everything you could possibly want. Streams, ponds, trees, open land. Everything you could possibly want is here. Low taxes, like $20 a year. It's all right here. Now, I only worked on it for a few months. No takers. A couple tire kickers, no takers. So I gave up. So subsequently, I went and I looked at the land like a year and a half later. Well, it's been destroyed. It's been cut over. Nothing but tree stumps left. Tree harvesting is what took place. The entire 1 square mile is destroyed. It's useless. Nobody would want it. Literally destroyed. wouldn't be any good for our purposes anymore. So that's what happened. So when I was telling Joel Wallach about this guy who was really not interested in doing anything but eating, he said it to me very simply, and it stuck with me. Now you know how Noah felt. Yes, I do. And man, is it frustrating. Now, we have some successes, but the vast majority are not paying attention to us. But they are paying attention to ball games and city events and, feel-good things and cell phones and television and stoop comms. But the reality, the closest they get to reality is a reality show, which is not reality. It's very sad. Rich, you have any final comments?
No, but, I'll say this. Albert Einstein mentioned, I'll quote him, I fear the day that technology will surpass human interactions. The world will have a generation of idiots. And we need to go back to nature and create that balance between nature and technology, because we're losing it. 7-8 hours a day on the TV and smartphone is not going to be a good thing for the future of our country.
Well said. Well said, Rich Scheben. Rich Scheben, thanks so much for being with us. Rich is with us every Monday right here on USA Prepares. See you tomorrow.